Hello and welcome to another webinar here together with us at Connect My Apps. First of all, thank you so much for joining. We've got an exciting lineup for you today, so it's great to see you here. We're going to focus today on Canvas as an iPaaS, in an integration platform as a service. How you can build and maintain your own integrations on the platform. First, we're going to have Luke Buckley, our CSO, having a conversation with Øyvind Malm, who's from Serit Eltele, and he has been using Canvas as an iPaaS for some time now. And he'll be sharing his experiences with you, so it's going to be an interesting conversation. Then Luke is going to do a more in-depth demo of Canvas as a platform for you, and he's also going to introduce a couple of new AI functionalities and new features on the platform that we've now just launched, which I think you'll find interesting. And then Luke and I will do a short wrap-up after that. Now, before we get going, there are two things that I want to ask you. Number one, I'd like you to think about an integration or two applications that you think could be the first or the most interesting one for you to start with, having a platform to build it on yourself. Which ones could they be? And see where you get to by the end of Luke's demo. The second question I'd like to ask you is to encourage you to send us your questions using the Q&A function in Teams. And we will respond as soon as we can to fulfill the questions that you may have. So with no further ado, here is Luke Buckley and Øyvind Malm.
Thank you, Eric. And I'm sitting here with Øyvind from Serit, who is a Canvas user. And we're going to talk about his experiences building with Canvas and, how the journey has been. And also if he has any advice for other people wanting to go on that same journey. So, Øyvind, thanks for joining us. We're here to talk about your experience building with Canvas. But first, maybe you could tell us a little bit about Serit, the company you work for.
Yeah. Serit is a group of IT companies based all over the country, from Finnmark in the north up and down to Agder in the south. We do basically everything from IT support to software development and even critical network infrastructure.
Oh, very good. And how long have you guys been around?
The company I work for has been around for 25 years.
Wow.
And the whole group has been in some form since the middle of the 90s.
Okay, so you guys are building integrations with Canvas, but I'd like to understand, how did you guys build integrations before Canvas? What tools did you use? What was the process?
Yeah, we did it actually in many different ways. We did some integrations we developed ourselves. That was basically PowerShell scripts running in scheduled tasks with no monitoring.
Yeah.
And we had these standard integrations. We almost did what we wanted them to do, but if we needed some changes to them, that it wasn't possible.
And was it dependent on certain people who knew how a PowerShell script worked?
Yeah.
And if that person wasn't there, it was trouble? And
exactly, it was one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, how the web shop integration worked was only one person. If he was on holiday and it stopped, then it didn't work until the autumn.
And I guess you guys also didn't get any kind of good overview of everything that was running?
No,
I see. So we talked a little bit about how you guys used to do stuff. Why did you choose Canvas as your iPaaS?
I mean, we have software developers internally that could make it, but there are APIs changing everywhere all the time. It's better than somebody else keeps on track of that, so we can focus on our business logic, how we want the data to flow in our systems instead. And of course, we get monitoring from a well-established platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess it's the kind of the maintenance aspect of it maybe gets reduced when somebody else is worrying about problems like API changes or if everything is up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we understand why you chose something like Canvas to make the maintenance aspect of it easier and to maybe get better overview. What have you guys built so far? What integrations have you made? What problems have you solved?
The first integration we did was an integration to move orders from our web shop to our economic system. And then we said, we can do so much more. So now we have done a lot of flows that move data from the accounting system down to a database on premises, so we can use them for reporting and other systems that doesn't support using Connect My Apps yet.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
We're working on it.
We are also doing the whole automation between our accounting system and the CRM system now. That's hopefully next week.
Very good. Yeah. And how do you guys decide what to make? Is it like the business setting the priorities, and then you decide what's possible to do in what time frame, or what's your process internally for
Well,
that?
basically, the first main focus, we changed our accounting system earlier this year. The main focus was to establish what we had and then fix the major pains that were with them, because we, as I said, we were using standard integrations with little to no possibility to change. Make it so that they make the lives easier for the people in the accounting department and the salespeople, so they get exactly the information they need where they need it.
Very good.
But there've been a lot of changes throughout the process.
Do you guys, well, I guess, how easy was it to get started? How did you find the experience? How did you kind of tackle this problem with Canvas?
Well, for starters, we had done a lot of preparation before we chose the product, because we were going to build them ourselves. Then I came across, like, I was looking at the existing legacy integration we had with Connect My Apps, and I thought, oh, they have this new product, I want to know more. Then we had the onboarding and a little demo, and since we are several developers at the company, we thought it's so fairly easy to get started.
Yeah.
And we, of course, had a lot of follow-up from Luke and the others.
Yeah, oh, that's really good. And was there anything that kind of was easier than you expected, or the other side, was there anything that maybe was harder than you expected in kind of getting going?
Basically, it was like, from the demo, I got a very good understanding of what it was like. So there were no surprises, basically. Like, of course, there have been some blocks that was needed, but then again, Connect Maps has been really great and just fixed it.
That's good. And you guys talked about, or replacing what you had previously and building it on Canvas, and then looking at new things. Has Canvas opened up new ideas or new possibilities of things that you could build?
Yeah, it definitely has, because, for example, before we had a lot of problems with invoicing of licenses to our customers, and now we're looking to make an integration that does that automatically. And that wasn't in our minds before we started using Canvas. We thought, okay, there's the also connector, we can use that.
Yeah, that's good. And I guess, would it be that the threshold to build something new gets a bit smaller when you have connectors and blocks and platforms? Yeah,
definitely. And also the threshold to make changes.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if our accountant said, oh, I want this data in that field, I said, okay, look now.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that before.
That's good. So the question I have next is, if others are watching this and they're thinking of getting started building integrations, or they're taking some inspiration, or they're wondering how to maybe get started, do you have any advice that you'd give in somebody going to go on this journey that you guys have been on?
Start planning before building. Like, you have to start considering what systems you have, what data you have, how it's going to flow, what's going to be the master data of it. Like, for example, what's going to be the truth about your customers. It's going to be your CRM system, your accounting system, or something else.
Yeah.
Make that before you start making anything. But then again, of course, even with planning, there will be changes.
Guaranteed. Yeah. And do you guys have a change process that you guys follow, or is it more flexible and that the person in the integration can decide?
In this area, it's actually flexible. That at some point we need to have it under change management.
Yeah. Very good. Ivan, thank you for joining us and taking the time to tell us about your experiences with Canvas. I think that was really useful, and I'm hoping it inspires others watching this to go and build too. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to give a demonstration of Canvas and how you can build integrations, and I'm also going to showcase some of our new AI features, which will help you do more in less code.
Now, that was an interesting conversation. I hope you agree with me. Thank you to Luke, and also, of course, a big thank you to Øyvind Malm from Serit Eltele. We always like straight talk and, of course, nice appreciations of the platform. Very nice to have. Now, I'd like to point out before we move on that there are a number of ways that you can enjoy the Canvas platform. You can do as Øyvind, use the platform yourself, or you can ask us and our professional services to manage this entire process for you. Or you can have the Canvas Accelerator program, where we can help you with the first couple of integrations in order to get you going, and then you can take over and maintain the integrations yourself. And most likely you can do your own integrations as well as an end of that program. Now, it's about time to let Luke demonstrate some of the workflows and how Øyvind and others are working on the platform and also a couple of those new AI features. So over to you, Luke.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, let's do a demo. I'm going to share my screen. And just one moment. There we go. And I'm logged into Canvas and I'm on the applications page. So in Canvas, I think it's important to just explain a couple of key concepts in terms of how the platform works, and then we can get into our demo and build an integration. So the first concept is applications. So the applications are the connectors to the applications you want to integrate. And in this case, the connectors go to the API and allow us to get data out and push data in. Here I have added some applications ahead of time. I have Salesforce CRM, which I'm going to use in my demo. To add a new application, very easy. You just click on Add New Application, and we get the list of all of the pre-built application connectors that Canvas supports. And it's a long list. It's 100 plus and growing. In this case, I want to search for Visma products, and then I want to select the connector for Visma Business Next, which is the other application I'm going to use in my demo. So I click on Configure. And when you want to add an application, we explain in clear language what you need to provide. Typically, it might be an API key, it might be a username and a password. In this case, it's a customer ID to my Visma account that I need to provide. And once I've done that, I can then select which client in Visma Business Next I want to connect to. And I can click on Save and Authenticate. And when I click on Save and Authenticate, Canvas tests the credentials that I've provided and verifies that it can connect. And it could. I got the green thumbs up message, and I'm back in my application connector screen, and I can see Visma Business Next is added. So this is great. I have Salesforce and Visma Business, which I will use in my demo. And it's now time to talk about a second concept in Canvas, which is workflows. So if applications are the connectors, the connections to your applications, workflows are the flow of data between them. So a workflow is what we call an integration in Canvas. But before I start building one, let's talk about my use case, because I think that's important to just say, what is the problem we're going to solve in this demo? And my problem is I have a sales team who work in Salesforce CRM, which is open here in my other tab. And here we sell. And my sales team have closed an opportunity for a customer called Acme Demo Company. And the sale is closed won, which means it's confirmed. We can invoice. And I can see the amount on the opportunity is 17,000 Norwegian kroners. And if I scroll down a little bit, I can see that's made up of one product line of consultancy per hour, quantity 10, and that's where I get my 17,000. So this is the sale, closed won, that my sales team have made. If I go to the next tab in my browser where I have Visma Business Next open and I click on refresh, I'm in the order invoicing screen. I have no orders and invoices. So my use case is I want to automate the flow of data from Salesforce CRM where I sell to Visma Business Next where I invoice and do my accounting. And to do that, we're going to go back to Canvas and we are going to create a workflow. So I click on Add New, and I enter a wizard. And the first question is, do I want to build from a template or from scratch? So templates are ready-made integrations that you can plug and play. We make them, we publish them, and we make them available. It's also possible for Canvas users to build their own templates. The other choice that I have is from scratch. So this is where I'm not going to use a finished template design. I'm going to build this myself step by step. And that's the option I'm going to pick for this demo, because then I can show you how Canvas works and get into the details. So I'll click on Next. The next question I'm asked is, which of the applications that I've added do I want to use in this workflow? So I will select Salesforce and I will select Visma Business Next. Now, I could just point out that you're not limited to one-to-one workflows. You can have one-to-many or many-to-one. I could add more applications here if I wished to. But for this demo, we'll keep it straightforward and we'll have Salesforce to Visma. And I click on Next. I now need to give a name. So I will say transfer ops, and you say when a sales op is closed and won, transfer to Visma. So this is just an option or a description where I can choose to give and describe what my workflow does so that I can better identify it later. When I click on finish, I now enter the builder. So this is where we're going to assemble the workflow from scratch, step by step. And here in the middle, I have this blank area. This is the blank canvas where Canvas, the product, gets its name. And what I need to do here is I need to put the steps, or what we call blocks, into my workflow, into place in the right order. And if we think about this, the process we want to automate is when a sales opportunity is closed won in Salesforce, we want that to trigger a transfer to Visma Business Next to create a new invoice. And we want that invoice to be on the right customer with the right product information, all of those things. So if I start to think of that logically, the first step or the first block I need is a Salesforce block to get opportunities. So I drag over the get opportunities block from the available Salesforce library, and this will be the first step in my workflow. And when I click on this block, I can see it gives an explanation of what this block does. When I click on this block and I click on block questions, I can decide how this block will behave. So I can answer some things here. So when should we search for opportunities? Do I want to get every opportunity changed since the last time I checked? In this case, I am going to say the start of the current month. So every time this block executes, it's going to look for all opportunities that have been created or updated, closed won in Salesforce since the start of the current month. Now, I can add more blocks. I will need to add more blocks because I only have one step. But before I do that, let's just save and let's run. So I can run this immediately. I can run this first block and let's see what I get. So this is a very important thing in Canvas, that it's very easy to prototype. You can test each step as you go. You don't need to construct everything and then run the whole thing, because sometimes that's not practical to do. You maybe don't know exactly what you need. You want to feel your way forward. So Get Opportunities block has executed. It has a green check mark, which means all good, no errors. When I click on the Results tab, I see data. So this is an object with opportunities returned from the Salesforce API. So this block has queried Salesforce API using my application connector, and it's found something. It's found an opportunity, and here I can see the opportunity has a name, it has a stage, and it has an amount, and all of this matches with what I saw in Salesforce on the opportunity itself. So that's good. I have my data flowing. The next thing I need to do is I need to import this data to Visma Business Next. And to do that, I'll expand the Visma Business Next block library, and I'll drag over import sales orders. So this is the block that will import data to Visma and create new sales orders for invoicing on the correct customer with the correct product information. And when I click on this block, I see there's some questions I need to provide. I need to provide a Visma company ID. That's just something internal Visma needs to import to the right company. I will enter that. And I also am asked, match existing customers. So how do we want to match? When this block creates a new order, how should it know what customer to create the order on? And I will select by company name. So then I'm going to match my customers between Salesforce and Visma by name. Now this is a choice. I could pick different options. And if you're wondering where these options come from, these are made when the block is made. So when Connect My Apps makes a block, we see what questions that the user might typically need to answer, and we make that as part of the block. And if you make your own block as a Canvas user, you can also set your own questions if you need to. Questions are often optional. They're not always required. So I now have a workflow starting to take shape. It's get opportunities is step one, import sales opportunity or sales orders is step two. But I'm missing something here, because I can't just take raw Salesforce data and pipe it into Visma and hope that it will work. Visma has its own field names, its own data structure. This will not work as it is. I need to do something in between. I need to transform the data or map the data from Salesforce format to Visma Business Next format. And to do that, I will drag what we call a generic block called a mapper block in between. So generic just means that we can use them in any workflow. They're not tied to any particular application. So now my workflow is looking a little better. I have step one, get opportunities. I have a mapper, which is going to map from Salesforce order opportunity format to Visma Business Next order format. And then that's going to give its results to the import sales orders block, and that should work. So let's go and define this mapping, because we've only added the block. We haven't actually said how to map yet. So to do that, I will just do a little bit of wiring and say that the mapper will get its input from opportunities and give its output to import sales orders, and that the Visma block will take its data from the mapper. And I can click on save. So my workflow saves, but with the mapper block highlighted, I'm going to click on the create mapping button. And what that does is it opens a graphical mapper where I can see on the left-hand side the structure of my input data. So this is the API response we got from Salesforce, where you can see we have opportunities, and each opportunity has fields, and it also has a stub object called account, which is what Salesforce calls a customer. And we also have opportunity line items, which is the product lines on the opportunity. And on the far right, the Visma block has told the mapper, this is what I need. So this is Visma format. You will feed me orders, and each order will have these fields, and orders will also have something called order lines, which you need to populate, and then we should have everything that we need. So let's map this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop and say for every opportunity, I want to get a sales order into Visma. And because I selected in Visma that I need to map by name to customers, I need to map up the name. So I'm going to take the account name field and drag that over to the customer name field here in Visma. And there's more fields I can set here, but actually I know that there's not that many I actually do need to set. I do need to set a currency, because I need to tell Visma what currency newly imported orders are in. And in this case, actually, I don't need to map anything. I'm going to say it's always going to be Norwegian kroners, because that's my company currency. So I don't need to map something dynamically. I can just enter a hard-coded value. And in Visma, 47 is the code for Norwegian kroners. So I've put that in. And the next thing I will do now is I need to map the order lines. So again, the order lines will be mapped from, if I just delete my filter here, if I scroll down, I have opportunity line items. So I will drag opportunity line items over to order lines and say for every opportunity line item I have on my Salesforce opportunity, I want to get one order line on my Visma order. And I'm now going to map the fields within the order line, and I'll expand opportunity line items, and I will say I want the product code to go to product number. I want the name to go to description. I want quantity to go to quantity, and I want the unit price to go to the price in currency. And this is all I need. So I can click on Save Mappings, save my workflow. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to test my mapping. Let's see the results. And again, I don't need to run the whole workflow. I just want to run the mapper step, because the data from Salesforce is still sitting here ready for use. So I will click on Special Run, and I'm only going to run the steps highlighted by the slider. And in this case, it's just the mapper I want to run. So let's run this and check it out. Okay, that's completed, green tick. I look on the results tab, and here I can see the data from Salesforce has been mapped per the mapping I just defined into a Visma order, where I have one order for my opportunity. I have the customer name, the currency, which I set to 47, which is the code for Norwegian kroner. And I have one order line, which is exactly what I expect, because I have one opportunity line item in Salesforce. So this looks good. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to test the final step, which is importing this to Visma. So again, if I go to Visma and I click on refresh, there's nothing here yet, because I haven't actually done the final step of importing it to Visma. So I'm going to run that, selecting just this step, and I click on run, and let's wait a moment and see what happens. Okay, it's completed. And when I click on results, I can see the Visma block reports back that a new order was created with number 2376. And if I go here and I click on refresh, there I see my order 2376, Acme Demo Company. And below I can see it has one order line with the information that I specified. So this looks good, success. And what I can do then is, once I'm finished with this, I can return to my workflow screen. My workflow is finished. I can always go back in and change something if I wanted to do it. what I can also do is I can set it on a schedule. So by clicking on this, I can say that this workflow should check for new sales opportunities every hour or whatever schedule I set and transfer them when they find them. So we successfully made an integration between Salesforce and Visma that will transfer my sales. And I did it using the graphical mapper, but let's do this again and do it a little bit differently. We're going to do this demo or this workflow. We're going to recreate it, but instead of using the mapper, we're going to use the built-in Canvas AI assistant. And we are going to ask the AI assistant to map it for us rather than us having to actually do it ourselves. So to do that, I'm just going to click on Add New Workflow again. I'm going to select From Scratch once again, and I click on Next. And now in the wizard, I'm going to select Salesforce and Visma, just like before. And this time I'll give it a slightly different name. I'll say Transfer Sales Ops with AI. Okay, Transfer Sales Ops with mapping done by AI Assistant. Let's click on Finish. And now we're back at the builder. We have the blank canvas in the middle. And I'm going to do just like before. I'm going to drag Get Opportunities block to the canvas. I'm going to say that I want to get things from the start of the current month and click on Save. And I'm going to run this to get some data. I want to get a data sample out because I can then get my AI assistant to look at the structure of the data and generate a mapping. Just wait for Salesforce to complete. There we go. And my data is here, just like before. And just like before, I'm going to add an import sales orders block. And I need to give my company ID, which I have here ready to paste. And again, I'm going to select I want to match by company name. So far, so good. Now, last time I dragged the mapper over. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add a custom code block. So custom code block is where you can put in custom code, but that obviously requires that you have some coding skills, some coding ability. But I actually don't need that today because I'm going to get the AI to do the coding for me. So I will just do some simple mapping. I'm going to say the code block is going to take its input as get opportunities. And the import sales orders to Visma will take its input from the output of the code block. And I think maybe also I can just say, I can rename the code block AI mapping, just to give it a bit of a meaningful name. So now I've saved it. I need to get my AI assistant to generate the code. So I'll click on debug and I'll expand the code editor and I'll just delete all of the placeholder text here. So what you would typically do in a custom code block, if you wanted to interact with the data, I would first thing is grab the input, which in this case will be data source number 1, and it's the opportunities. So if you remember, the data we get back for Salesforce has a field called opportunities, which contains all of the opportunities that we want to work with. And what I would next do is I say, okay, well, I need to store a result, the result of my mapping. So I can say that result equals to an empty list or an empty array. I would then need to do a mapping, and then I would need to return the result so that the Visma block has data to import. So, I wrote a little bit of code here, but obviously I'm missing the mapping. I don't have anything actually mapped up. So, but what I'm going to do is instead of actually doing it myself, I'm going to click on the AI Code Assistant feature here in the custom code block and just drag expand it over. And what I'm going to do now is I can ask a question. I'm going to tell it, and again, if you get you need to give it some kind of meaningful information or a prompt to the AI to tell it what you need to do. So in this case, I want to say using the source and target data, because again, the source is the Salesforce data, the target is what Visma needs. Write JS code to map source objects to target objects. And I'm also going to give it a little bit of an additional instruction because the AI will try to help, but it might try to help too much and do things that it doesn't actually know the answer to. So what I'm going to say is only map fields you are sure about, so that the AI assistant only maps what it can clearly identify, what looks right, rather than making best guesses. And I'm also just going to give it a hint that order lines on the target object is an array. So that's just to give it an instruction that order lines could be multiple, and it's not just one, you could have many. And now I'm going to do is I'm going to send this request to the chatbot, and the chatbot is going to think. And what the chatbot actually does is it's contextual. So it looks at the blocks you've added, it looks at the data. It doesn't actually look at the values of your data, it only looks at the structure. So no actual data is shared with the AI assistant. I think that's important to say. It simply analyzes the structure of the data, because that's all it needs to know. And here it's generated some code. And what I can actually do is if I just copy this whole code segment, and I'm just going to paste over what I wrote. So now we have a mapping function here in the code generated by the AI. Let's go and test it out. So what I will do is I will close the coding window. I will save. And just like I did in the last workflow with the mapper, I'm just going to run the middle step. So let's run the AI mapping and see what we get. And it's finished already, green tick. And when I look at the results, I see, okay, this looks really good. This is the structure that Visma wants. It's mapped up customer name. It's mapped up order lines. And you can see it's mapped up more fields than I did in my actual mapper myself. So the AI has filled in some more of the blanks. Now, I can continue with this, but I think it's important to say that you have the opportunity to, of course, override. If you don't agree, you could ask the AI assistant to, try again or give it some additional instructions. But of course, I can also just comment things out. So I know actually customer number, I don't need this. This won't work. I have customer name. That's how I want to match. So I can comment that out, which means I just exclude it from the mapping. And likewise, I know I don't need product. Actually, I don't need warehouse. I'm just going to take them out. So again, you have the full ability to control the code that's generated. Nothing gets executed without your permission. And what I'll do then is I will save. And let's run the mapper again, the AI mapping again. And I get the same data. This looks good. Let's try it out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to import sales orders, feeding it the output from the AI. Just wait for that to complete. Okay, success. When I click on results, I see there's a new order has been created, 2377. And I go back here, 2376 was the one I did in the previous workflow. And here we go, 2377. And it looks good, it's the same. So in this case, I got the same result, but I got it in less time because I got the AI to do the heavy lifting mapping work for me. And that's something that you can do with the AI assistant that's built into Canvas. To go just a little bit further into this, what you can also do is, if I open up the debug window again, go back to my code, I can continue my conversation with the AI. So for example, I want to know, is my code good? Are there any issues? Could something be improved? I can say, please review my code and highlight any issues that you see. So let's see what we get. Maybe we'll get something interesting that we should think about. Okay, we get some results. So it's talking about certain fields. Your reference, it's talking about customer number is commented out. That's true. We did comment it out. So it's just questioning if that's what we wanted to do. What you can also do, of course, is, you're free to agree or disagree with the suggestions, but what you can also do is you can ask for rewrites or specific things. So for example, I'm concerned that maybe sometimes a value might be null in Salesforce. It's empty, it has no value at all. And I want the code to handle that and to not get tricked into accidentally sending something empty when something needs a value. So what I could also do is I could say, rewrite my current code and change it so that we check for null values. If a value is null, set a default value, which, for a number it might be 0, or for a text it might be an empty text string. So let's see what we get back. And we get the code. So again, it's the same code effectively that we have, but there is a difference. When I copy this over here, I can see there's actually a null check inside in the code. So again, we're saying, okay, if it's null, we'll set something, instead of a customer name, we'll set default customer name. So this is really useful. So I can actually iterate on my code and get the assistant to work with me. It's not just one shot. You can have multiple passes until you get the desired result. And with that, I can close my editor. And of course, I can come back to workflows. And here I can set the schedule on my workflow just like I did before, every 5 minutes or whatever I might like it to be, and so on. So that was really useful. What I can now do is I can do one more thing, which I think is very cool with AI, is generating documentation. Because the classic question is, when you build a workflow, the question is, well, what does it do? And what it does might change when you change the code or the mappings or what have you. So in this case, rather than having to manually maintain documentation, which is difficult and time consuming, you can actually have our AI assistant generate the document of what your workflow does. And to do that, I can click on this Save PDF button. And AI features are enabled, which means we want the AI to assist in generating the documentation. And here I can decide what level of assistance I want. Do I want the AI to try and figure out all of my mappings? Do I want it to give a description of its code? Yes. Do I want to even include my custom code? Yes, I do. And when I click on Generate, all of this information is passed to the AI assistant, and it will generate a document via email, which should pop up in a moment or two. And what I will do then is I will go and open that doc and I will show it, and you can see the results. There we go. Just got a message saying that it's been sent to my email, and I will just stop screen share for one moment while I access my email, and we can then open the PDF. And here we go. And I'll just open the attachment from the email. And I'll share my screen again. Here we go. Okay, and I will share my screen. There we go. So here I'm viewing the document that was generated and sent to me. And the document, well, it gives you the name of your workflow, the description text. It tells you what applications. It tells you its current schedule frequency, and it's none because actually I didn't activate the schedule yet. I can see the blocks that it contains. And what I can also do then is I can go down and I can explore what the blocks do. So in this case, the Get Opportunities block has a fixed description, and it gives me the answers to the questions. So remember, what opportunities did we want to get? We wanted to get from the start of the current month. And when I go down to the AI mapping block, the AI assistant has actually generated a table telling me how it's mapped, which is really useful. So I don't have to do this manually. So here I can see all of the field names and, source and target and any description available. And I also get a description of the code. So the AI describes the code that it generated. And finally, because I chose to include the JS code itself, I actually have the code. So again, if you wanted to make a document for technical users of what your workflow does step by step, you can do so. And finally, the last step then is importing sales orders. So that concludes this demo. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got an insight into what's possible with Canvas in terms of building integrations, connecting your apps, and also in terms of using AI to enrich that experience and to make it easier to build things. Thanks for watching.
So here we are at the end of the show. It's been exciting, and it's great to see that you all wanted to join us this morning. Luke, I wanted to wrap up a little bit relating to this and ask you, what is your take on the actual implications of AI in integrations work?
Yeah, a great question. And I think AI its primary goal is to make it easier, integrations can be complex things, and sometimes you need that helping hand, and sometimes you know what you want to do, but you'd like to move faster. So if something can assist you. So I think from the point of view of being productive and also I think from the point of view of enabling people to do things perhaps that they couldn't do before. So if something requires a bit of code and that's not your primary skill, the ability of something like an AI assistant to be able to do that part for you and allowing you to focus on the business logic, I think is really useful.
Now, obviously, there's been a lot of focus on AI and the features in Canvas as an integration platform as a service, or an iPaaS. And we constantly add new features. And so the obvious question, Luke, is, what is on the horizon? What can we tempt our viewers with?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, great question. No, we're continuously improving the product. And just to finish on the topic of AI, we're going to build out on that with AI-assisted mapper features and AI-assisted problem solving if in the event of issues in your workflow. But one of the big things we're launching in this month in June is webhooks. So the ability to trigger your workflow from an external event is really exciting and not just depend on scheduling. And I think that will open up a whole new avenue of possibilities for use cases, in terms of automating your workflows and having it on demand, event driven, I think will be really exciting.
So it's about making it easier for non-developers and also make developers work faster is the kind of the key?
That's exactly right. So I think it's productivity across the board.
Right. So what would then be your message, a fun word to our viewers and the community out there?
Well, I think my final message is building integrations is possible and you can do it, is what I would say. And you don't have to be a full stack hardcore developer. Canvas works for those closest to the business problem. And sometimes a little bit of code helps. And if you can't code, that's where AI assistant comes into play. But it's really about getting in there. And I think getting started and not being afraid and not worrying about things to be too complicated, because as we showed in the demo, you can start small, you can prototype, you can iterate until you get to where you want to go. So that would be my message of there's no time to lose. Automation is there.
And there we are. The time is now. You can start using Canvas yourself. It's the clear message from the software guru, the Canvas guru.
Thank you very much.
And I hope that you've made your choice as I started our session with, which integration or which applications would you like to have connected? Maybe, hopefully, throughout this session, you have had an opportunity to make that choice. Now, if you want to know more, obviously, get in touch. The email is showing probably here. And get in touch with us so we can help you with any questions that you may have. And on that note, let's wrap it up here and say thank you for watching and have a great day.
Thank you.